Welcome to the Workforce Playbook, a podcast hosted by Everywhere English. We help companies grow by upskilling their international employees through language and cultural training. I'm Kate, and in this podcast, I chat with leaders shaping today's workplace. They are sharing real stories about communication, culture, safety, and performance. What's worked, what hasn't worked, and what they've learned along the way. No hypotheticals, no buzzwords, just honest conversations. Hi, Ellen. Thanks for joining us today on the Workforce Playbook. Ellen Masterson is with us here today, a Learning and Development Manager with 10 years' experience across manufacturing and, in particular, food manufacturing. So, Ellen, I will let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your role and how you're managing the L&D space right now.
So I am part of the learning development team within a HR function currently. So we support a large and diverse workforce in food manufacturing. I think most food manufacturing have a large, diverse workforce. My role focuses on capability building, onboarding, compliance training, and helping teams develop their skills to work safely and collaboratively as well.
So that's a lot of things you just said there. There's a lot of things you're doing. So in terms of practically for anyone who's listening, what does a good day look like for your team right now? So you go into work and you say, Jesus, that was a great day. What does that look like for you?
A good day to me is actually happening on the shop floor rather than at my desk. It's when supervisors use clear processes to align their teams, or when an operator says they're finally understanding why a task matters. I think that's a big gap in in food manufacturing, is actually why we're doing stuff. And it's a good day when people are communicating better as well, so fewer errors, and then more confidence in their roles as well.
I completely agree there when you said about supervisors, you aligning with supervisors and site leads and team managers, because what we found with some of our customers and other guests is that they're such big companies. Everyone can be quite distant, and the different departments, it's so important for all the departments to be connected and aligned and be on the same page with training or with learning and with development, and for everyone to be on the same page and in the know, I think is very, very important when trying to implement
Yes,
training
definitely.
in the workplace, you know. And you've had experience for 10 years across different companies. So from when you first started 10 years ago until now, how have you seen the workplace evolve? 10 years is a long time. So how has it evolved since then?
So when I first started in training, we weren't allowed to use translators or different forms of media at all. And then now it's do what you want so people can understand. I think
Wow.
teams are becoming more diverse, and it isn't just about different backgrounds. It also includes language, culture,
Mhm.
people's past experiences as well. So if they've had a bad experience in learning previously, they're not going to be so
Mm.
involved in it now.
And just out of pure curiosity, why were you not allowed to use translators?
I don't know why. I think there was a barrier that said, no, you must understand English to be at
Yeah,
this skill level or do this role. Well, it's not the case. People are
yeah,
so smart.
yeah.
Just because they don't understand English doesn't mean they can't do the role. There is different ways of communicating this across to
Yes,
people.
yes. And we always say that actually at Everywhere English, that people view language kind of as it's just a translation, like language vocabulary, but it's not. It's communication, it's culture, it's a mix of all these things. And people forget that when they think of English learning. So yeah, completely agree there. Okay. And in terms of challenges, what kind of communication or cultural challenges have you noticed as teams grow or as teams come, the more nationalities, what kind of challenges have you faced?
I think now you're seeing more nationalities joining workforces. There's assumptions that people don't understand when it's just about changing the way you sort of perceive something, or to give that information across. So what can be obvious to one group isn't totally obvious to another group of people. I think that's the biggest change I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. We had a guest on recently, and she said something that really stuck with me was to be aware of your own bias. Like we all have this bias and we all assume things, but just it's so true to never assume.
Yeah, I think staying curious is a
Yeah,
massive
yeah,
massive thing, especially when you do have these new groups coming in. It's like, what can they actually bring, and how can they grow
yeah.
as a training function or even as a business?
Absolutely. And I've heard that a couple of times now with guests. Curious, be curious. So that's something we should definitely get out there to people. And yeah, that's it's so true. So true when you think about it like that. They have even in the different types of the world, it's like when people go traveling, they learn so much about different cultures and the way things are done differently, and they could be doing it miles better than us.
Oh,
And
yeah,
we
definitely.
have to listen, and take it on board. Absolutely. Um Okay, so in terms of like practically in a day-to-day experience, real life experiences, real life scenarios, can you share a time or can you think of a time where a communication or miscommunication had a big impact? So positive or negative, when you thought, okay, communication skills here had a massive impact.
So it's very, very simple. So we had a like a label control change that happened in
Hmm.
the business, and it was a outdated SOP. So we're going back to the basics of like paper
Yep.
based stuff, and it caused real confusion. It didn't include photos. There were steps that weren't clearly explained. So different people were interpreting the process in different ways, which led to like, mistakes and extra work being done. And it's not because the people didn't understand, it's because the process wasn't right and not communicated across. So once we actually added photos in and explained the process right and actually explained why people were doing it, it made it so much better. It's just getting those really simple things
Yeah. And
right
these
that made
things,
communication better.
yeah, and you only learn these as you go.
Yeah.
You can't be expected, at the start, you're 10 years doing this now, and you're learning along the way. And something like that you mightn't have thought about 10 years ago or didn't think there was a need for it.
Yeah, so for me, I think back to like, oh, if I'm going to buy a bit of flat pack
Yeah.
furniture, it's all photos.
That's so
You
true.
you can give that to anyone and they could understand it and build it. So why aren't our processes a lot more like that, but
That
also
makes
with the
so much more
communication as well?
that makes so much sense. Yeah, okay. And so across the company, have you implemented all your SOPs in that way or kind of in the process of it?
It's a slow process
Yeah, of
because we don't
course.
want to overwhelm people either with
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
In any business, change is sometimes not seen as such a good thing. So
Yeah.
slowly implementing it and having that communication of why it is actually important
Yeah.
and why it's being done, I think
Yeah.
helps.
I can see this. I'm just every time I speak to someone, I'm just gonna like put pictures in your SOPs. It makes it's so much practical sense. But yeah.
Yeah,
And that
it's well and good doing like strategic planning and stuff like this, but
yeah.
if you're not getting sort of those basic
Yeah.
things right, you're not going to have build that trust with people.
Yeah. And with large companies then it is difficult because do you full autonomy over if you wanted to change all the SOPs, or is it going back and forth? Is it a decision that takes a long time from the senior management?
With the more complicated
Yeah,
things, yes, it can take a long period of time because you're
yeah,
trying to implement it with different, say, sites or different departments to have sign off and stuff like that.
yeah.
So yeah, it can take a little bit longer, but once it's right, it's a sort of rolling process.
Okay, okay. Yeah, very good, very good. Um, so going back now to the team itself, not just language, not just nationalities, but everyone's even personalities. Everyone is so different, right? How do you ensure that everyone's voice is being heard? Naturally, coming from a different country or working in a different country, you're going to be more reluctant to speak up or voice your opinion. So, is there any kind of method you use or practical tools that you can share to ensure that everybody's being heard?
I like to create psychologically safe spaces. So, for example, whenever in any business there's been a training room, it's no disciplinaries, nothing like that happens in that room because that's someone's safe space. But I
Okay.
think it's building relationships with people and actually giving them that voice to be heard, whether it's question boxes or they put stuff in that's translated that can be retranslated. It's giving people multiple ways to contribute, but not just verbally.
Yeah. That's really. I'm just writing this down now. But that is so good to create like a psychological safe space and not to do, I suppose, not negative, but yeah, no disciplinary kind of things in that space, so people can really be and say what they want to say.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I want people to be able to walk into a classroom to do any sort of training, whether it's
yeah,
reading for an SOP or sitting on a classroom course, and have that confidence to be able to speak up and ask questions.
yeah,
'Cause what I find as a trainer, I've had this over multiple years, that people don't want to ask me questions because it's not in their culture to ask questions,
hmm, yeah,
and they should be able to ask questions and be
yeah,
open in a classroom
yeah.
environment or even with their managers.
And again, that is a learning curve. It's not like you can tell them and then tomorrow they start asking a million
Yeah.
questions. You know, it is a process. It is a process where they become um that they feel safe. To be honest, absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. It's really nice. And what's worked well in creating a culture of clear communication across teams? So obviously the creating like a psychological safe space, that's lovely. But is there anything else that's kind of worked well with creating a culture for clear communication?
Um, Pairing new starters with buddies who speak their
Okay.
language. So once they've done, say, like their induction with
Yep.
me, we do an induction on, say, like a separate day, so people have like that slower learning process.
Yep.
Um, but it starts them off in the business with the confidence to actually ask questions to someone, say that in their own culture or in their who speak their own language, and then we can start, say, pushing people like in their boundaries to work with other people. But yeah, it's creating that safe space from the start, and also avoiding jargon and like simplifying instructions.
hundred
I
percent.
think it happens in every business. You walk into a business, it's like, oh, this word, and it's like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Even for us, you know, and there, I think that goes back to everyone being on the same page because I think from senior management, it has to dilute down.
Yeah,
Everybody has to be using the same language. I mean, you might be fantastic at simplifying things, and you know, because you're an expert in the field, but you might have finance and accounts and someone else talking all this jargon, and they're like, what's
yeah.
going
Oh,
on? So
yeah. What is this? Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So for everyone to kind of, I suppose you could have some sort of we had a company before and it was kind of in their not contract, it was in their policy that we don't ever refer to the staff as employees, it's team.
yeah,
So that's just an example of language that I wouldn't have been aware of. I would have been going in there saying employees, being completely transparent, but it was just like a policy where you read and say these are the terms that we use for different things, and it was only a simple little document, a one pager, where we would use kind of specific vocabulary, and it helped. It really, really helped just to have that, and then everybody who was involved in the company would read that and be on the same page with vocabulary and things along those lines. And then looking at the future. Obviously, everything is changing with technology and AI and training and the way we do things and the way we run businesses. And I don't think ever that a AI or a robot is going to take over HR or learning and development because it's just impossible. Like, just in my opinion, I don't think anything should be. I don't think any part of it should be taken over by AI.
oh
Right?
yeah. I'm of the same
Yeah.
same
Oh,
understanding.
no way, because HR is a human function. But what skills do you think that HR leaders are going to need, or people leaders, in the next kind of 5 years in companies?
I think one of the most important skills for me for people to pick up on is cultural intelligence. So
Hmm.
really understanding how different backgrounds shape the way people work and communicate. So food manufacturing, as I said before, will always be diverse with new groups coming in and becoming our new leaders as well. Um, leaders need to adapt to different cultural needs and stay open to new ideas and create an environment where everyone feels understood and are able to contribute as well.
Hmm. And then with, say, trying to improve your cultural intelligence, like practically, what does that look like? Is that you as a HR manager taking a course? Is it, or is it you going doing the research yourself on how to, like, if for somebody who is maybe listening now, who is a HR manager and says, oh God, maybe I need to improve my cultural intelligence. What do they do? Do they take a course? Do they read a book? Do
I
they
think it's
research?
speaking to different people from different
Speaking to the
cultures
people. Okay.
and just creating those relationships with
Yeah.
different people. I think you find as more people go up to be leaders from different backgrounds, you will have these new ideas and these new ways to communicate. But I think just speaking to people is one of the biggest things for me to learn about different cultures and different
Yeah.
backgrounds. I, as a training manager, I spend time on the shop floor talking to people or different team leaders or in any business that I've been in. It's about building those relationships. Else, I wouldn't have learned anything about different cultures and backgrounds.
That's so good to hear because sometimes you hear, that, um, no offense to the HR department, but sometimes you hear that they're kind of locked away in their office and they do their job and they stay inside. But to hear that you're kind of down on the factory floor or on the shop floor, talking to people and building relationships with people is really, really nice. That's really, really, it's really positive. Yeah, absolutely. So very good. Yeah. Okay. Cultural intelligence. That's something that we all have to think about and become more aware of, most definitely. Okay. And you've worked for a couple of companies in food manufacturing, but is there anything that you feel you could change about how companies deal with communication? Is there anything that you wish companies would do that they're not doing, that's hard to implement? Something.
I think it's the shift of the mindset from fixing language gaps to fixing something to designing communication that works for everyone. It's
Okay.
not just about making people fit in the system, it's about making the systems accessible, and I think that can work for any business.
Okay. Yeah, that's lovely. That's really, really nice. Yeah. And do you think that's an issue with a lot of companies?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
believe it is.
Hmm. Okay. Very, very good. And what's one small change that leaders could make tomorrow? Well, I suppose you've kind of just answered that there now, but in particular, what's one small change that one person could make that would have an impact tomorrow?
I think it's to stop assuming that lack of understanding means lack of ability. So often people um, simply haven't been given clear or accessible information. So using simplified language, checking understanding, and again, making people feel safe can make a huge difference. So I think when businesses think about like objectives and stuff
Yeah,
like that, they should be thinking about those little things as well. So they need to sort of
absolutely.
slow down a bit.
Yeah, reflect. And they're not, you said little things there. I don't think they're little. I think they're so important. And they play such an important part in the
Yeah,
whole running and operations of the business. Um, if your team aren't there, your business isn't there,
yeah, exactly.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day. So that's absolutely. Okay. And this is a question that we ask everyone at the end of the podcast. And for anyone kind of HR, L&D manager, anyone in that space is listening right now and they're having a hard time, feeling really overwhelmed with their workload. Everybody knows that. Like, I mean, how many actually, when I come back to it, in your current company now, how many employees are you, sorry, team, are you overseeing? Like, how many do you work with in general?
So
Approximately.
current, yeah. I currently there's about 250, I believe.
So, like, you have one person here trying to, like, that's a big ratio.
Yeah.
I don't think people think about how big that is. Each person is an individual and learns differently and works differently, and it's trying to find the right way to standardize all that. But if you have somebody listening now who's really overwhelmed, have a large number of people to manage, what's one piece of advice that you would give to these people who are feeling overwhelmed right now?
I've done this myself many a times, and I think I see a lot of other people in the L&D environment and HR environment. They want to have all the answers. You don't need to have all the answers at once. You just need to stay, again, curious, ask questions, listen, and involve other team members in finding solutions as well. You don't have to come up with all the ideas.
I'm writing down this sentence again. You don't need to have all the answers right now. And I think that's important for anyone listening. Yep,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think, like, especially, say, if you are part of smaller businesses or smaller functions, that you think that you have to solve all the problems, but you don't have to. You can ask other people to input on that, and again, slow down, solve one thing,
Yeah,
and that can make a big difference.
absolutely. And just this is a question that just came to my mind. With the different companies you've worked with, have they been different in company size? Have you worked with kind of smaller companies, medium
Yeah.
companies, and larger companies? Okay, and does it get more difficult as the company gets larger?
Yes, I believe so. So in the larger company that I was working in,
Yeah,
you had like you could get what I say, like pockets of
yeah.
culture. So
Okay,
it would be like different shifts or different
yeah,
departments. They would all be communicating differently
yeah. Okay,
through doing training or anything. It's trying to standardize that, but it's very difficult when you're looking at, say, like 40 different sites and you want to implement the same
yeah.
thing for every site. It can be very, very different.
Oh God, absolutely, absolutely. Um, that brings us to the end of this episode. Ellen, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really interesting stuff. And I even wrote down a couple of your quotes or lines that people should absolutely be listening to. Create a space, a safe space, so people feel in a training room, wherever it is, so people's voices are heard. Even you mentioned that the buddy system after onboarding is a really nice way for HR managers to make life easier, to stay curious, to never assume, and to put images in your SOPs, people.
Yeah, it's a very
And
simple thing. Think
very simple.
furniture. Think furniture.
Exactly, exactly. And you don't need to have all the answers right now.
Yeah.
That's a lovely one to finish with. So thank you so much for joining us, Ellen.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
a
very
million.
much for having me.
That brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like and subscribe. You can also find more episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you the next time.